Joining us now is Dan Geltrude, CPA market analyst, and thanks so much for being with us, Dan. Look, even though the administration might not want to admit it, you saw there those in the Fed meeting. They think that this is not going to be transitory. Do you think that we're in for inflation for some time to come?
Yeah, I do. And from the moment that we started with this word transitory, and a lot of people didn't even know what that meant, that it would be temporary, I was not in agreement. And the reason that I wasn't was because I was looking at it and saying, what policies or what is going to happen that is going to change the trajectory of inflation? It just doesn't stop by itself and retracts. There has to be events, policies, and so on that are going to reverse course. And the path that we're currently on right now, I do not see inflation stopping until we get to the point where people simply can't afford things.
Yeah, sobering. Well, U.S. consumer confidence has also hit a low for the decade. That's fueled by concerns over rising inflation. That's according to the University of Michigan's consumer survey data, which was released yesterday. I mean, what do you make of that?
Well, I certainly understand it, because what's there to be optimistic about? A lot of people received higher wages and say, yeah, that's great. And then what happens is the price of services and goods are outpacing what their wages are. So people have the right to be feeling, well, I'm not so confident about what's going to happen. And the reason that's dangerous is because the economy is driven by emotion. When people feel good and confident, they go out and spend. When they don't feel confident, they hold back.
Yeah, and definitely people have a lot of money in their pocket at the moment. They haven't been spending it over the pandemic. But look, MSNBC's Stephanie Ruhle ripped into Dollar Tree after the company cited inflation as a reason for raising its prices to over $1. She tweeted, "Let's be clear, Dollar Tree does not need to raise prices," and goes on to say they're hiking prices just because they can. This comes after Ruhle was slammed for her, quote, tone-deaf comments on inflation earlier this month. So is this Dollar Tree's fault that they have to raise prices?
Absolutely not. You can't expect Dollar Tree to absorb all these additional costs and not pass that on to the consumer. I don't think Dollar Tree is trying to really take advantage of people. They're just saying our profits need to be protected. So now instead of being the Dollar Tree, they're the $1.25 tree. Doesn't sound so great, but I certainly understand why they have to do it.
Yeah, well, meanwhile, Virginia Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger has been breaking from the rest of her party, demanding that President Joe Biden takes action, saying there is a variety of contributing impacts, but certainly I think the buck stops with the president. And I'm proud to be among those legislators on Capitol Hill that will continue to ring the alarm bells about how serious this is. But the Associated Press points out President Biden is on a mission many presidents have taken on with very little success: beat inflation. Just what can the president do? Is it really in his power to stop inflation?
Well, it's all about policies, right? And once inflation starts, yes, it becomes a challenge. And what I would say right now, the biggest thing that the federal government with its policies should be addressing is the cost of energy. Because when you're talking about oil and fuel, that's what drives the cost of everything. When people travel, it costs more. To get goods, it costs more because it costs more to go from point A to point B. Our policies right now related to oil and related to energy are not good. We are relying on foreign oil. We had been energy independent. We've got to get back to that point, and that's one of the key policies that has to be addressed. How do we become energy independent again? And when we do that, you will see inflation start to retract.
Well, Energy Secretary Granholm laughing hysterically at the very idea that the U.S. could become energy independent. But what do you make of President Biden's move to release millions of barrels from the reserve?
He released 50 million barrels from the reserve. And what I say about that's like killing a mosquito in a rainforest. That's about 3 days worth of oil that we use in the United States. So it's not going to make any difference at all. We have to look at something long term. That's not even a Band-Aid when you're talking about 3 days. So policies have to change. I don't think that energy independence is such a long stretch because we've been there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Dan, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate all of your views, and who knows, let's hope that things do change, that we can get a grip on this inflation. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
And